worship the God who is. We worship the God who evermore will be. 'Cause he opened the prison doors, he parted the raging sea. Our God, he holds a victory. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. We won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. We won't be quiet. We shout out your praise.
Today we're covering House of the Lord by Phil Wickham, and there's a lot going on with this song, so I'm excited to show you all the different pieces and how they work together to play the song. And we'll cover your left hand, different chords, capo positions, that intro lick that you heard, as well as the secondary guitar lick that goes with the intro of the song, and then also your right hand and strum patterns, and the best way to play some of these offbeats that you hear. And even the chart is different in this song. It's not something you see every day. So let's go ahead and take a look at the chart and get a feel for the song as a whole. You can download this chart. Just use the link in the description box. And there I have full courses while you're at Guitar Man downloading this that you can check out for $1 to start a membership and look at all the guitar courses, as well as a course on how to really understand the Nashville number system, which is what this charting method is based off of. But I'm going to explain this chart in particular because it is unique. If you look around the chart, you can see that there's boxes and there's little hatch marks that you'll see sometimes, and that's unique. You don't always see that. And then some boxes have little hatch marks that identify the beats of a measure. So combining this, it's really good to get a good handle on what the song sounds like and then how that applies and what this chart is telling you to do as far as your right hand. That's the cool thing, by the way, about this charting system. If you've never heard the song before, but you understand what these symbols mean, you'll be able to play it exactly correctly and switch at the right time. That's what's so cool about the Nashville number system. So back to the chart. Again, we're capo 3 using the G chord family. So G plus 3 is going to put us in a B flat, which is the same thing as an A sharp. It's higher than A, it's lower than B, it's a B flat. So that's what we'll focus on mainly to start as far as your left hand. And these G chord family chords are the easiest to play, and it lets you get that intro lick, which we'll talk about in a second too. But you could also capo 1 and use the A chord family. You saw in the intro I was doing that to kind of help complement what was going on as well. So if you have two guitars, you could do that. And then transpose all of your G chords into A chords, and it'll work out perfectly. Well, they'll complement each other. So you have a few different options with your capo. Let's go back to G. As far as the beats per minute, it's not particularly fast. What's tricky about the song is the rhythm and the syncopation of some of the beats and how that translates with your right hand. Before we get to your right hand and strumming, let's talk about your left hand and chords, and then we'll move into more of how to identify the chart, how to play it, and get the rhythm correct. So as far as your G chord family chords, it's all of the normal G chords that you'll see. So G. With this song and sometimes songs in G that move a little more quickly, I'll just keep my bottom two fingers in place. For the D, for instance, that'll be a D sus chord, which is totally fine to play. And then a C2 chord. And again, that connects these chords together. So G, C2 I'll use instead of C. D sus I'll use instead of D. And then we have an E minor, and lots of times in this song that happens really quickly. You can play an E minor if you want, that's fine, or you can play a G over E, which is a G chord with an E in the bass note. It's kind of a chord that will replace an E minor and make it quicker. So I'll use that all the time if there's an E minor, especially if it happens quickly or if the song's fast. And otherwise, that should cover you most of the way. There is an A minor at the end of the song and one in one of the verses. Sometimes if you want to keep your pinky in place, just like all the other chords, you could do that. That would turn it into an A minor 7. So your chords aren't particularly hard. They're just G chord family chords. Really more the challenge is in with your right hand and strumming. So we'll cover strumming in your right hand first, and then later we'll cover the intro lick and how to play that, as well as some of the other electric guitar licks. Now, if we go back and look at the chart and just all the different symbols and the things happening, it's really talking about your right hand and what you need to do with that. So the best thing to do to start out strumming with this song is to play downstrokes and eighth notes, and that's going to help you time some of these weird syncopated chords. Counting 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Loosen up your wrist so you can go at a decent speed. And at the beginning of the song, you can see there's a full measure of G. So it would just be 1, 2, 3, 4. Anytime you have a full measure, it will just be 4 beats. And then the next measure over, you can see looks a little different. It's a little odd. So there's 3 beats assigned to the first chord, and then you see this symbol here, and what that means is that you're going to come into that chord an eighth earlier than you would normally. So you'll hang out with 3 beats on that first chord, which is a G, and then we'll switch to the D on the end of 3. So 1 and 2 and 3, and then you'll switch to the D to finish out 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So when you switch on the and of 3, you'll finish out that measure on that D chord. 1, 2, 3. So right after the 3, you move to the next chord. So that little mark just means you're jumping an eighth note earlier than you would normally in that type of situation. So 3 strums on the G, and then switch really quickly to the D. You can see that happens a couple times in the intro, and then you'll see a C to D, and it does the same thing here. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. We'll talk more specifically about the intro and how to play the lick in a minute, but as far as what's happening and what those symbols mean, that's what that means. You'll stay on 3 beats and then switch on the and of 4. So the verse is actually straight, so there's no little marks that mean to jump in an eighth note early. You have 2 measures of G, full measures. You play that the same. Then you have a G for 2 beats, an E minor for 1 beat, a D for 1 beat. So all you're doing here is just counting and lining up your chords as you're counting. So that G to E minor to D sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you're switching on the downbeat. So when you actually say 3 is when you switch, or say 4 is when you switch there. And then that happens again, the second half of the verse. And then the chorus is more straight. And then the turnaround is where you see the little mark again, where you start jumping on the and of the beat instead of the downbeat. So which gives it the unique sound. And again, we'll cover the lick in just a minute. So if we look at the rest of the song, all you're really doing is trying to figure out when you're playing on the downbeat or you're playing on the and that will be notated with the mark. And there is one spot where there's a stop or a choke at the end of the down chorus. So the chorus starts with a diamond, which means you just strum it once and let it ring. And at the end of that chorus, you'll see it's C, 1, 2, 3 is where you stop. You stop for the 3 and the 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that'll start you back into the next section. So that's the easiest thing to do with your right hand, is just focus on down strums. And then once you get kind of the rhythm, the feel of the song, your hand is going to be in a motion, in this back and forth motion. You can feel free to add in some ups as you want and kind of create the feel there. And again, with this intro lick, you might use what we'll talk about there in just a minute and apply that to the rest of it as far as the vibe of the song. As you can see, I'm just having a rhythm just going back and forth. and then subtly accenting some different offbeats. Easiest thing is to start with downstrokes, and then you can move into a chug-a-lugga 16th groove there. So now let's talk about the intro lick. This is kind of the fun part of the song, and it identifies it right away. It sounds like this. So I'm playing the lick within the chord. So this is a great option if you just have an acoustic guitar, not a full band, to play all the different pieces. So what I'm doing is playing, starting with the G chord. I'm not worried about my pinky because I'm not strumming all the way down. And I'm taking my pointer off. So that's kind of that's my starting point for this chord. And this might seem a little odd, but I'm using my middle finger to also mute out my 5th string. So I have a nice bass note to complement what's coming next with the lick. So I'll start with the pinky on the 3rd string. So I really have that bass note, a D ringing out, and then my lead note for the lick with my pinky. And then I'm same string, that 3rd string, I'm using my pointer finger to go back to the 2 or the 2nd fret, to hit that twice, and then back to the pinky. So pinky. And this next part, I have a D as a bass note, so I don't need my G anymore just for this. And I'm really focusing on my pointer finger. D is the bass note. And then the next lead note is that G open, and I'm playing a C in the bass note. You could play the traditional C shape or just take your pointer off if you want to open, which is normally what I do. Not strumming all the way down, I'm just focusing on the bass note and kind of the lead note. To D. If you do accidentally hit the 2nd string, that's okay, it'll still fit in. Now let's take a look at the electric guitar part that sounds like this. So the way to start with this is middle finger, 3rd fret, 2nd string, and then right above it will be your pointer or index finger to start this back and forth on the 3rd string, 2nd fret, 2nd to 4th, and then you're going to play where your middle finger is holding, 3rd fret, 2nd string. With your right hand, you're really just using your thumb on that 1st joint. This is a flat picking method, so you're not strumming, you're not really using your wrist. You're just kind of zeroing in on a string, real small plucks with your thumb. And this is the other trick that's kind of hard. You're constantly going down, up, down, up, down, up. You're not having 2 downs in a row or 2 ups in a row. It's just a constant back and forth with your thumb. And what's weird about this is because it happens in 3s, bump, 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 the triplets, it's going to not always land on the same downstroke on the same note, if that makes sense. So I'll play it slowly so you can hear what I'm talking about. Down, up, down, and then you start up, down, up instead of down, up, down. Up, down, up. And then on the 3rd one, you actually stop with your ring finger. So 2 triplets, and then stop. And you do it again. And then you move into your 2nd position, which sounds like this. Now this one's even trickier because you're skipping a string in between with your downs and ups. It is possible, you just have to give yourself time with it. Pointer on the 3rd fret, 2nd string. Skip that 3rd string because we don't need it. And then your middle finger relative to capo is 1, 2, 3, 4th fret to 5th with your ring. Same pattern. And it's just those two things back and forth. And then second position. One more thing with this position is you can also hammer on, which is just playing a note and then having your finger act as a hammer. It doesn't sound quite the same to me, but it's one way to get maybe get it a little quicker if you're struggling with picking quick enough. Same thing here. The nice thing about that is that you would be able to keep down up consistent with the strings. Just be down on that string and then up on the second. So I don't necessarily recommend that, but if you're having trouble with speed with your thumb and your right hand, you could try that out as a hammer on if you have the finger strength to do that. So that's how you play the electric guitar lick. So far we've covered your left hand, all the chords you need, the intro part, as well as the electric guitar lick, and then your right hand in strumming. And the only other reminder before we end is just different capo positions. Now, if you're capo 1 using the A chord family, what you could see in the intro that I was doing is just using those chords to kind of complement the big chord changes. So this is a nice technique if you just want to fill out the song or you have two guitars playing, just capo in a different spot, transpose it to that key, and then just play nice big open chords, and that will really help fill out the song. So hopefully all this will help you get started and challenge you in different ways for the song House of the Lord by Phil Wickham.